A former Israeli ambassador just said something that has stunned the entire diplomatic world, and Washington is paying very close attention. He said, in plain language, that it is not the United States that is at risk from the current collapse of the NATO alliance. It is the European members. It is Germany. It is France. It is Poland. It is the smaller nations that have sheltered under America's security umbrella for decades without paying their fair share. And now, according to this veteran diplomat who has sat at the highest tables of international negotiation, that umbrella may be folding. This is not a theory. This is not a political attack. This is a geopolitical warning coming from one of the most strategically sharp regions on the planet, a region that has lived with existential threats every single day of its existence. When a former Israeli ambassador speaks about security risk, the world listens. And right now, he is pointing his finger directly at NATO's European members and saying, "You are exposed. You are vulnerable. And the United States may no longer be willing to save you. Stay with me, because what comes next will completely change how you understand the NATO alliance, American foreign policy, and the future of global security." Welcome to Foxy Global News, the channel that brings you the real story behind the headlines, the analysis that mainstream media won't give you, and the global perspective that helps you understand a rapidly changing world. If you are new here, welcome. Please hit that subscribe button right now and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. We cover geopolitics, international security, diplomacy, and the power shifts that are reshaping our world. And we do it without the spin, without the bias, and without dumbing it down. You deserve the full picture, and that is exactly what we deliver. Now, let's get into one of the most explosive geopolitical statements made in recent months, and break down exactly what it means for NATO, for Europe, for the United States, and for global stability. To understand the weight of what the former Israeli ambassador said, you first need to understand who Israel is as a nation and why its perspective on security carries a completely different kind of authority than almost any other country on earth. Israel has never had the luxury of assuming peace. Since the moment of its founding, it has existed in a neighborhood where the threats are real, where the enemies are armed, where miscalculation means annihilation. Israeli diplomats and military strategists do not speak in abstractions. They speak in survival. And when a former Israeli ambassador to a major world power looks at NATO and says the European allies are the ones at risk, not America, that is not a casual observation. That is a cold, calculated assessment from someone trained to see threats before they materialize. So, what exactly did he say, and why is it so significant right now? The former ambassador's core argument is this: the United States, geographically, economically, and militarily, is not dependent on NATO for its own defense. America has two ocean buffers, the most powerful military in human history, and a nuclear arsenal that serves as its ultimate guarantee of security. If NATO were to weaken or dissolve tomorrow, the American homeland would not face any immediate military threat. The same cannot be said for Poland, for the Baltic states, for Germany, or for any of the European nations that share a border, directly or indirectly, with a resurgent and aggressive Russia. This is the fundamental asymmetry that has always existed inside NATO, but has rarely been spoken about this directly. The United States joined NATO as a protector, not as a nation that needed protection. Europe joined NATO because without American backing, it could not credibly deter Soviet, and later Russian, military power on its own. That dependence has never truly gone away. And now, with American political sentiment shifting dramatically, with serious voices inside Washington questioning why American taxpayers should continue funding the defense of wealthy European nations, that dependence is becoming a vulnerability. The former ambassador's remarks come at a moment when the relationship between the United States and its NATO allies is under more strain than at any point since the alliance was founded in 1949. The debate over defense spending has been simmering for years, but it has now reached a boiling point. The agreed NATO benchmark is that member nations should spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense. For decades, the majority of European members failed to meet that target. Germany, the largest economy in Europe, spent years hovering around 1%. France, a nuclear power and permanent member of the UN Security Council, spent years falling short as well. The message from Washington, particularly in recent years, has been blunt: the free ride is over. And Russia is watching all of this very carefully. The war in Ukraine has exposed something deeply uncomfortable for European NATO members. Despite the rhetoric, despite the declarations of solidarity, despite the emergency summits and the strongly worded statements, Europe has struggled to provide sustained, sufficient military support to Ukraine at the speed that the conflict has demanded. Production bottlenecks in European defense industries, political disagreements between member states, and years of underinvestment in military readiness have all contributed to a situation where Europe's ability to fight a prolonged conventional war, if it ever came to that, remains genuinely in question. The former Israeli ambassador understands this dynamic because Israel has spent its entire existence solving a version of this same problem. Israel cannot afford to depend on others for its survival. It has built its own defense industry. It has developed its own intelligence capabilities. It has made strategic decisions, sometimes brutal ones, based entirely on national survival rather than alliance politics. And from that vantage point, he sees European NATO members as nations that have outsourced their security for so long that they may have forgotten how to truly provide it for themselves. Now here is where the argument becomes even more pointed and more controversial. The former ambassador is not simply saying that Europe is militarily underprepared. He is saying something deeper, that the political will within the United States to maintain its traditional role as NATO's backbone is genuinely eroding, and that this erosion is not a temporary mood or a negotiating tactic. It reflects a real shift in how a significant portion of the American public and the American political class views the alliance. For Europe, this is an existential question, because if American commitment to NATO's Article 5, the provision that says an attack on one member is an attack on all, is no longer absolute, then the entire deterrence architecture that has kept the European continent at peace since 1945 begins to crack. Russia knows this. China knows this. And now, thanks to this former ambassador, the rest of the world knows it too. What should Europe do? The answer, according to this line of thinking, is the same answer that Israel has always lived by. You cannot outsource your survival. Europe must invest massively and urgently in its own defense capabilities. It must build a European defense identity that does not rely on the assumption that America will always show up. This means higher defense budgets. It means developing European strategic nuclear deterrence. It means deeper military integration between European states, and it means having a serious, honest conversation about what European security looks like in a world where Washington's priorities are shifting. The former Israeli ambassador is not celebrating this situation. He is warning about it. There is a significant difference. He is not saying America should abandon NATO. He is saying that European NATO members need to wake up to a reality they have been avoiding for a very long time, that the security guarantee they have taken for granted for 75 years is not permanent, not unconditional, and not free. And the clock, he is essentially saying, is ticking. For anyone watching from the Middle East, from Asia, from any region that has had to make hard security choices without the comfort of American protection, this is not a surprising analysis. It is the reality that most of the world lives with every single day. The surprising thing is that it has taken this long for these words to be spoken this plainly about NATO. The words of this former Israeli ambassador carry a weight that should not be ignored. He is not speaking as a partisan. He is not speaking as someone with a political agenda against Europe or against NATO. He is speaking as a diplomat who has spent his career navigating the most dangerous neighborhood on the planet, and what he sees when he looks at the NATO alliance today concerns him. The risk is real. The vulnerability is real. And the window to address it is narrowing. If this analysis opened your eyes, if it gave you something to think about that you haven't heard on the evening news, then this is exactly why Foxy Global News exists. We bring you the conversations that matter, the voices that cut through the noise, and the analysis that respects your intelligence. Do us one favor right now. Hit the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps us reach more people who deserve to hear this kind of reporting. Share this video with someone you know who follows global news, who cares about geopolitics, who wants to understand what is really happening in the world beyond the surface-level headlines. And if you are not yet subscribed to Foxy Global News, there has never been a better moment. Subscribe right now, tap the bell, and become part of a growing community that refuses to look away from the hard truths of our time. We will be back very soon with more global coverage, more expert analysis, and more stories that the world needs to hear. Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, and keep asking the questions that matter.